Let's talk sports. Let's go. The 12th Man Podcast.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Let's go, Doug, coming to you live from beautiful College Station, Texas, with your 12th Man Podcast. This episode of your 12th Man Podcast is brought to you proudly by the Dixie Chicken, an Aggie tradition since 1974. The town and the university have changed, but the chicken has remained timeless. Generations of Aggies have walked through the same swinging doors for a great burger or a cold beer. Come on out to the Dixie Chicken today. Welcome to this 12th Man Podcast, all my brothers in arms, elite family. We're going to do top 3 offensive and defensive performances of the week, as well as doing score recaps for week 2 and looking ahead at the games for this week 3, and also doing a little bit of a Heisman update and how the people, the Heisman race has changed now that we're into week 3. Starting in the ACC in week 2, number 15, Clemson at Tennessee. Tennessee holds on in a close one and wins it 41-31 over the Tigers. Number 20, Georgia Tech visiting at number 10, Ole Miss, and Ole Miss pulls it out 43-31. We're going to take a look at the stats real quick. Georgia Tech put up 346 total yards on the day, 85 rushing yards for 2 rushing touchdowns, and threw for 261 yards through the air and another 2 touchdowns. They had 56 total plays for an average of 6.2 yards a play and had 21 first downs on the day. Ole Miss only managed 19 first downs on the day, but they also ran 56 plays and averaged 6 yards a play. Ole Miss had 124 rushing yards, 4 rushing touchdowns, and threw for another 210 yards to the air and 1 passing touchdown. Third down convergence for Georgia Tech was 3 of 8 for 37%, and Ole Miss was 2 of 10 for 20%. Ole Miss went deep into the playbook, though, to pull out the big one in that game. Fake punt in the fourth quarter to turn the game around as they scored 19 in the fourth and secure a 12-point victory over the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. Moving on to our next game, Arizona State at San Diego State. Arizona State put 49 on the Aztecs as they rolled to a 49-13 victory in the Sunshine State. Arizona put up 479 yards of total offense, ran 65 plays. They had 28 first downs. They ran for 103 rushing yards and 1 rushing touchdown and threw for another 376 yards and 5 touchdowns through the air as they averaged 7.4 yards per play on the day. However, their defense gave up 320 yards to San Diego State Aztecs and allowed 7.3 yards of play on the day. They were 6 of 12 for 50% on third down, though. And their defense held the Aztecs to just 3 of 10 for 30%. Now we're going to jump on down here, Florida State and Missouri State. Florida State pulls out the victory 28-14. The Missouri State fans came out in droves when the Seminoles came to town, but it wasn't enough as Florida State put up 410 yards of total offense. They had 113 rushing yards for 1 rushing touchdown. They threw for 297 yards and 3 touchdowns through the air, and they averaged 6.8 yards per play on the day, and they also had 23 first downs. The shining spot for the Seminoles was their defense, who only allowed 8 first downs on the day, 228 total yards of offense, 71 rushing yards, and only 157 passing yards through the day, and they held the Missouri State team to 2 of 9 for 22% on third down, while converting 7 of 12 for 58% on the offensive side of the ball. That takes care of the ACC. Let's jump over to the Big Ten. In the Big Ten, UCLA hosted Hawaii. The Rainbow Warriors came to town, but they didn't have enough juice as UCLA cements the win 45-20 at home. Taking a quick look at the stats. UCLA had 20 first downs, 408 yards of total offense, 88 rushing yards with 3 rushing touchdowns. They threw for 320 passing yards and 2 passing touchdowns while averaging 5.4 yards per play on the day. They were 7 of 16 on third down for 43%. Hawaii, though, put up 430 yards of offense, but like I said, it wasn't enough. They also managed 19 first downs on the day while averaging 5.4 yards of play. The Rainbow Warriors took the ground game at UCLA, and the Bruins couldn't hold them off as they ran for 170 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. They also added 260 passing yards to the air, but no passing touchdowns. The UCLA defense on third down was holding tough as they held Hawaii to 7 of 18 for only 38%. Now we look at Penn State. Number 2, Penn State at Michigan State. They outlast the Spartans 42-17, but the game was never close. Penn State led 21-7 at the half. Michigan State did put up 10 to make it 21-17 going in the fourth, but that's when Penn State was all gas, no brakes, put up 21 to go through and get their 42-17 win. Penn State had 377 yards of total offense on the day. They ran 61 total plays, averaging 6.2 yards a play. They rushed for 125 yards on the ground for 4 touchdowns and added 252 passing yards through the air with 2 touchdowns. But it was a rough day on offense for the Nittany Lions as they only went 2 of 8 on third down for 25%. They did play good defense, though, against the Spartans as they held them to 10 first downs, 230 yards of total offense, 57 rushing yards, and only 1 rushing touchdown and only 173 passing yards on the day for the Spartans. They also, on third down, held the Spartans to 5 of 15 for 33%. Moving along, Ohio State at home against their FCS opponent pulled out an outstanding victory, 63-13. Let's jump in real quick and take a look at the stats. First downs for Ohio State was 24. They put up 647 total yards of offense, ran 44 plays, averaged 14.7 yards. Yes, 14.7 yards a play. They had 178 rushing yards on the ground for 4 rushing touchdowns. They added 469 passing yards and 5 passing touchdowns on the day, while going 2 of 5 on third down for 40%. That 40% looks like a low number, but let me tell you, when you don't have a lot of third downs because you're getting first downs and averaging 14.7 yards a play, there's not a lot of third downs to be had on the game. Now we're going to jump on over to the SEC. SEC UCF at home versus their FCS opponent. And they pulled out a stunning 62-6 victory. UCF on the day had 27 first downs, 566 total yards of offense, 58 plays, averaging 9.8 yards a play. They had 102 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, while adding 464 passing yards through the air with 4 passing touchdowns. And they went 3 for 7 for 42% on third down. Now we jump down. Number 14 at number 7, Miami. Miami holds off Texas 13-10 in a close one. Now you got Arkansas at home against their FCS opponent. Arkansas blasts their FCS opponent 52-10 as the Hogs were rooting them on down the road. Arkansas on the day had 30 first down, 604 yards of total offense. They ran 69 plays, averaged 8.8 yards a play. They ran for 192 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, and threw for 412 passing yards and 5 touchdowns on the day. They went 3 of 9 on third down conversions for 33%. Now we jump down to number 8, Oklahoma, at what was number 2, Florida, who's now currently ranked number 13. Oklahoma stuns the Gators in the swamp 56-21. Let's have a look at this game. Oklahoma had 19 first downs, 375 yards of total offense. They ran 52 plays, averaged 7.2 yards a play. They carried the ball 22 times for 64 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns while only averaging 2.9 yards a rush. The Gators' run defense was strong on the day, but it wasn't enough as Oklahoma Sooners put up 311 passing yards, 22 of 30 and 4 passing touchdowns, averaging 10.4 yards a pass. They went 6 of 11 for 54% on third down conversions, and that was the tail of the tape as they held the Gators to 3 of 10 on third down for only 30%. The Gators only managed 14 first downs on the day, 290 yards of total offense. They ran 53 plays, averaging 5.5 yards a play. They rushed the ball 27 times for 161 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns, averaging 6 yards a rush. But they had no passing touchdowns and only managed 129 passing yards on the day. Great win for number 8, Oklahoma. Once again, Oklahoma came back tough and put up 28 in the fourth quarter. Just to give you a tale of the tape, it was 21-14, Gators at the half. Then it was 28-28 all going into the fourth when Oklahoma put 28 on the Gators in the fourth and final quarter. Great game by them. Now let's jump around and take a look at week 3 matchups. Your week 3 matchups, we're going to start in the ACC. Tennessee is hosting number 18 North Carolina. That should be a good one because your Tennessee Volunteers are 2-0 on the season and they're looking to break the top 25. A win against number 18 North Carolina will do it for them. Number 20 Georgia Tech at home against their FCS opponent. Number 15 Clemson at home versus their FCS opponent. And here's another big game for Ole Miss as they host another new user to the league. Number 12 Pittsburgh at number 10 Ole Miss. That game should be a barn burner, folks, and that will be one of your games of the week for week 3. Florida State also at Georgia should be a good game. I heard he said he's going to teach Georgia to respect his elders. We'll see if it's true when the final score comes on through. And now we're going to jump into your Big 12 games. Number 21, Michigan, and number 2, Penn State. Penn State continues to roll as they're 3-0 on the season and 1-0 in conference. Number 4, Oregon, visiting in the rivalry game at Oregon State. Oregon State is always tough at home, especially in the rivalry game against the Ducks. Drop it on down. Number 5, Notre Dame has their FCS opponent at home, and they should keep on rolling. I expect Notre Dame to put up 60 on the game, and let me tell you, I've got negative 56 as a stat line on that one. Washington at Washington State in another rivalry game, the Apple Cup. That should be a good one as Washington State, no matter their game, no matter their rank, no matter what they are, always plays the Huskies tough at home. Hawaii is visiting your number 1 USC Trojans. And that should be a barn burner there too. It looks like I'm just in. USC has already played the game. They blew Hawaii out 63-10 on the day, covering the spread of 49.5. Nebraska at UCLA. Big game for UCLA there as they continue to try to break into the top 25. Now let's drop down to the SEC. Big game here, number 8, Oklahoma at Arkansas. Always tough playing on the road in the SEC. Now out number 3, Alabama has their FCS opponent at home. Number 13, Florida at number 14, Texas. That's another big game of the week. And that one I've got Florida minus 3.5 because it should be close. And Maryland visits Death Valley to play LSU. Now let's jump back real quick. This ACC game right here. Number 12, Pittsburgh at number 10, Ole Miss. The stat line on that one, Ole Miss minus 7.5. They're looking to win by more than 7. So number 12, Pittsburgh at number 10, Ole Miss is going to be minus 7.5. And your SEC game, Florida at Texas is going to be Florida minus 3.5. All right, we're going to do a quick Heisman update real quick. We're going to jump in there. I'm almost done. Here we go. There's been some movement in the Heisman race, folks. Let's check it out. Quarterback Tavion St. Clair of Ole Miss has jumped up to the number 1 spot. Bryce Baker, the quarterback of the Penn State Nittany Lions, right behind him, moving up to number 2. Quarterback Jerron Kiwi Sagapuluteli of USC has dropped down to 3rd place, while Winston Watkins Jr. of Ole Miss has jumped up 1 spot, and Rocco Franco, the running back for the Ohio State Buckeyes, has managed to break the top 5 in the Heisman race. That's it for all I got for that. Now it's time for your top 3 offensive and defensive performances of the week. Here we go. Your top 3 offensive performances of the week. UCLA quarterback Shane Honeycutt went 30 of 48 for 62%. He threw for 320 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, no interceptions, and he carried the ball 11 times for 50 rushing yards and 1 rushing touchdown. Oklahoma quarterback Walt Brown went 22 of 30, 73%. He threw for 311 passing yards, 4 passing touchdowns, and no interceptions. As once again, like I said, they stunned the Gators in the swamp. Ohio State quarterback C.J. Carr, the transfer from Notre Dame, went 19 of 21 for 90%. He threw for 399 yards and 4 passing touchdowns. And that's your top 3 offensive performances of the week. Now for your top 3 defensive performances of the week. Ole Miss linebacker DeMarco Garnes had 10 tackles, 2 tackles for loss. He added a sack, 2 interceptions, and a pass breakup. As once again the Ole Miss Rebels were rolling against the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. Ohio State cornerback Tristan Castro. He had 10 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, 2 interceptions, and 1 forced fumble. And your last top defensive performance of the week is Oklahoma linebacker James Nessa, who had 5 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, 1 interception and a pass breakup, and 1 defensive touchdown. What a game for James Nesta as he was the game breaker in their game in the swamp. That's all I've got for this week, folks. That's your 12th Man podcast for week 3. Until next time, this is Coach Dub signing off.